This week I learned it's never too early to start thinking about a little spooky season. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update as we're inching closer and closer to the month of October, which is a month near and dear to my heart. But you know what? September, it's not that bad either because, the temperatures here in Houston, they dip to about 98. That's kind of the beginnings of fall for us here. But hey, lots of fun things did happen on the channel this week, and we are going to talk about them. We're going to begin, like always, by talking about what am I reading. Well, I decided I needed a little bit of a break, so I started a canticle for Leibowitz. Let me tell you guys, I understand why this book is so discussed, is why it brings up so much conversation, why anytime I talk about the post-apocalyptic genre and someone says, hey, why aren't you talking about Canticle for Leibowitz? I can understand why, because I feel like it has lots of things that, you think about the time period that was written, it was very much speculative fiction. That was at a time period where it wasn't, if we dropped the bombs, it was when we dropped the bombs. That's kind of during that time period. And what I guess I didn't expect out of this is I was told it had 3 parts, but I didn't know it was going to kind of jump around in time the way that it does. And here's what I'll say. Part 1, amazing. It is incredible stuff. I could not get enough of Brother Francis' story. I thought it was so good. It was just what I wanted in that type of story, just kind of in that apocalyptic wasteland and finding remnants of, the time past. It was really, really fun. It was almost like I was reading a Fallout game, which, by the way, the guys that created Fallout, there's 0 chance they didn't take influence from this book, no doubt. And especially with the way that part 1 ends. You could see that for sure being a quest line in Fallout games. But I loved it. Then part 2, I didn't expect the time jump that it had. That's what I didn't expect. And now we're almost kind of dealing with, coming out of the Dark Ages and beginning the Renaissance period. It's kind of what it seems like with you're rebooting humanity here. And I'm about to hit part 3, and I'm having a feeling it's going to have another time jump. And it's probably either going to advance to where we were when this book was written, or maybe a little bit further in the future. I'm not really sure. But I think the whole point of the story is it's kind of showing the cyclical nature of humanity and how we are doomed to repeat the mistakes that we made in the past, because that's just how we function as human beings. Where history's like looking at us and being like, really? Again, you're doing this again, So if you are one of those people who is very, very tired of history can and will repeat itself, it might be a little bit rough for you. But I can definitely see that's the way that's going, is that humanity is always going to make the same mistakes. And, it might be kind of dour, not what you're looking for at the time, but I can definitely see why it is considered a classic up to this point, because it's very good. But I do wish that part 2 is exciting as part 1, but it's definitely not what I would call anything bad. I'm liking it quite a bit. But that leads me back to Bloodsong again. I'd say I'm about 3/4 done, close to it. Look, I'm going to be honest, I feel completely let down by this. And I know that's going to upset some people, because it just seems like universal acclaim for this book. Everyone loves it. And now that I've read some of it, I understand why. Because this is The Name of the Wind, the lesser. It very much, to me, seems like Anthony Ryan read Name of the Wind and said, I can do that. And I'd see that Name of the Wind is a very, very popular book. And I can see now why this is such a popular book, because it is very much like Name of the Wind. Perfect protagonist, recounting his life story, the coolest dude in the room, never does anything wrong. And it's just tiring. It really is tiring. And I'm not saying I'm miserable while reading this. I was expecting something amazing. I was expecting to want to do nothing but read Anthony Ryan books for the rest of the year because of how good this book was. Now people are telling me, treat this one as a standalone because the rest of that trilogy is not that good. I'm kind of having that thing where I did with Liza Locke-Lamora. Well, if the first book isn't exactly blowing my socks off, why should I continue? Or, hey, maybe the other books are a little bit more what I'm looking for. I love a character story, don't get me wrong. And I think the story that is being told here is fine. I like the character development, except for the fact that, like I said, I don't feel that this character struggles at all. And I've got this damn good feeling that while you're getting the framing story, and this character is going to like this duel that everybody thinks he's going to lose, I have a feeling he's going to win this duel, and it's not even going to be close. That's just kind of how I feel, just because of the fact that this character just does everything right. It just never, ever just does anything out of place. I mean, at 12 years old, this kid is besting warriors and packs of animals and stuff. And I'm just like, geez, come on. So again, I'm not opposed to a badass character. I just like to see them struggle a little bit. And when I come with coming of age, and I feel like I'm not really, the only struggle you have is that your parents abandoned you, that's it. I don't know. maybe it's just one of those things. It's just not going to click for me. And again, like I want people to understand, I'm not saying I'm miserable reading the book. I was just expecting something amazing, and I feel like I'm just getting a. It's fine. It's just fine. It feels like a 3 out of 5 book to me, unless like the last 100 pages completely melt my face off. I just don't see anything in this book melting my face off because it is slower than molasses, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. How about what am I going to read now? Obviously. I've got these 2 books to finish up, so I'm not going to finish. I'm not going to start a 3rd book before I finish at least one of these 2. But if you guys did watch my recent announcements of my spooky season reads, that's what's on deck next. So all I have left for September is to finish up these 2 books here, and then I'll start on my spooky season plans. And I don't mind starting a little early because really Halloween starts here in the States the first day of fall, which is today. And I feel like it's okay to kind of get in those spooky season feelings. I feel like we've already started watching some of our movies, which I'll talk about in a minute here. And I think it's okay if you want to start some of those spooky season reads a little early. Also, because, I'll probably be done with them before Halloween, and I've got massive books planned in November, like page count wise. So it wouldn't be a bad thing to get started on those a little early. So that's really thinking ahead here. But I guess the first one that I'm going to read is going to be The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher, because I think that'll be a nice change of pace. I've got 2 books that I would consider, I wouldn't really call Bloodsong a heavy read, but it's just a little bit thicker of a book, and it is slower paced. Candle for Leibowitz, I say, is pretty much a heavy read because there is some very heavy stuff going on and some themes and ideals and stuff like that. So I think that getting into a shorter horror book, it's like 350 pages, is what Hollow Places is. And a little bit of portal horror, portal fantasy sounds like a good time. And what I said in that spooky season video was that I was looking for an author to replace that female voice in horror that I have lost with Anne Rice. And I guess people mistook that. They were thinking I was making a comparison of T. Kingfisher to be like Anne Rice. Now, you can find Anne Rice clones out there. What I mean was Anne Rice was like my standby horror author for a long time. It was her and Stephen King. That was it. So for me, I was like, I'm looking for a female voice in modern horror because I feel like female horror is written much differently than male horror. I don't think that's controversial to say. I do, and I was looking for someone to kind of be that constant read in horror that is of the female persuasion because I feel like they do write much different than guys do, and I need a little bit of that. I feel like it balances the playing field a little bit. And the name that kept coming up a lot was that I would like was T. Kingfisher, based off of things that I like, recommendations, and just a lot of comments that I've gotten on the channel. So that's where I'm going to be starting The Hollow Places. I'm very excited about it. Apparently, it is her kind of her tribute to The Willows by Algernon Blackwood, a book I like quite a bit and have reviewed on the channel. I love The Willows, so if she's going to play around with that idea, I don't know if it's like a straight up remake or if it's just like a hat tip to it or what, but people have told me there's lots of pop culture references to like Narnia and Lord of the Rings in there, and that sounds right up my alley. Why not? I do appreciate things like that. So that'll probably be what I start on after I finish Bloodsong and or A Canticle for Leibowitz, or both sometime next week. But I would expect it to be before October the 1st. How about this week on the channel to get a couple of things out? It was a little slow going, and I'll talk about that as I go here. A video that I did about special dishes was just, it was a shorter video for me, like 10 minutes is a pretty short video for me, but it was just a topic that kept coming up a lot because I've been getting these books from Broken Binding and Folio Society, and a lot of people have been asking, why do you own special editions of books you already, why are you going out and buying special edition books? Do people really want to pay that much money just because a book is pretty when they already own it? And this stemmed off the fact that I have multiple copies of Dune. And I was like, yeah, that's what collecting is. So I kind of just talked about why I think that special edition books have gotten so popular, why things like Lit Joy Crate and Broken Binding, Folio Society, Wraithmark Creative, why they've all blown up in popularity, and that I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, because anytime those companies put out a new edition of a book, it sells out in minutes. Broken Binding has a waiting list years long, so it just why I didn't think it was very hard to explain, but in the end, long story short, collectors are going to collect. That's what we do. The example I put was, it's not just books for me. I have several things that I collect. I have enough sneakers, but I still go to the Nike app every single day. It's the way that I put it. It's just because it's just, does a millionaire ever be like, you know what, I've got enough money, I don't need any more? I think that's just kind of how it is with all collectors. It's just you never reach a point where you're like, you know what, I've got enough. I don't need any more of that. And then I did my spooky season TBR. Now, I always do this one a little early every year, my October TBR because that is the one where I get the most participation from the audience, where they will join me on what I'm reading. So I like to give them, a good 10 days or so to make sure they get all their affairs in order to be able to clear the decks on their TBR and obtain copies of some of these books and join me if they want to. So I have 4 books this year, and I was very, very excited to do it. But the reason that this one was a little late is because guys, I used to do these reading introductions for almost every video I did on the channel, and they take a lot of time. And this one, I'm not going to lie, it took like 2-3 hours to put this one together, even though I know that most people are just going to skip it or not even watch it. But, in the end, that's just how I am. That's how I roll. And I was very, very proud of that reading introduction. So what I do every spooky season is the books I pick is I take some quotes from those books and put it into a reading introduction over the same music that I use every year. And it's really fun. I was really particularly proud of this one. Instead of just the art, I used the new ℙ𝕦𝕣𝕒 version that I paid for and got all these crazy additional things on it. And I just used a lot of the stock stuff in there to kind of make like videos and stuff to kind of fit the mood of each one of the 4 books that I did pick. So I worked very hard on it. So if you guys would watch it, I'd appreciate it. But thank you for all those who did watch it and gave me lots of good feedback on it. But spooky season, obviously, that's something I'm very, very excited about. This year, I tried to keep that same formula I've been using with 1 horror, 1 sci-fi, 1 fantasy, 1 miscellaneous, but I did them all with a horror twist. For example, sci-fi horror and fantasy horror, historical fiction horror, and I guess horror. So Teen Kingfisher was the one that was just my regular straight up horror book this month. But it's fun. But that is going to be the last month that I do this, where we can go back to just whatever is on the TBR is what's on the TBR, because I am going to be reading some more fantasy and more fantasy going forward, but I'm not going to neglect horror and sci-fi like I have in the past, so don't worry about that. I've had a great time reading some of these horror books, 1 per month, and I think the whole point of me doing that was that I wanted to discover some new horror authors, and I have Grady Hendrix, Ronald Malfi, Philip Fracassi, hopefully now Teen Kingfisher. These are ones that I'm going to be reading many more of their books. Nick Cutter's another one that I discovered, because I realized I labeled this channel for all things fantasy, sci-fi, and horror, and I was like, the only horror I talked about was Stephen King. So I wanted to make sure that I gave the option to talk about more of these modern horror authors. And I feel like that's been pretty successful. Speaking of spooky season, we did over on Mike's Media Reviews, we announced our movie lineup, because we always do this every year. It's a tradition with my wife and I. And now my oldest son has kind of moved into it as well, is where my wife isn't crazy about horror movies, but she will watch them in October. So we just try to cram as many into October as we can. And every year it's just gotten bigger and bigger. And what we'll do is we'll take a bunch of movies. We'll keep like a running list of movies that are contenders to be on that list. And we'll watch all the trailers, and we'll narrow it down to about 13 or 14 movies, because even in a good month, we're not going to watch more than that. And then we would just kind of each take turns picking in the order that we want to watch by, which ones we want to watch the most. And we did that video where we announced all of those movies out there. So it's been a lot of fun conversation. A lot of people stunned I haven't seen particular movies, or that my wife isn't going to be able to handle that movie or whatnot. But it's fun, and it's just a blast. It's a family tradition. Now that my oldest kid is in it, he actually picked the first movie that we watched last night, which we'll talk about in a minute. And it's just become like a big thing. And so if you guys are interested in the horror film genre, check out that video over on Mike's Media Reviews. We're going to be talking about a lot of those in single reviews here very, very soon. That brings me to next week plans, guys. Do have a couple of things planned already. I'm going to be doing a Talk About Nothing tomorrow night. Now, it's going to be 7 p.m. Houston time with Richard and Austin over at 2 to Ramble. They're going to join me on the channel, and that should be fun. We talked over on their channel. It was like right before I was going out of town. I was like, I'm sorry, guys, I only have about an hour. And it was like I didn't want to go when we said we had to go. And so I was like, I want to have them on. So I feel like we could have talked a lot more, because all we did over there was talk about Red Rising, and for some reason we talked about Sarah J. Maas a lot. I have no idea why, but that's just kind of where a Talk About Nothing conversation can go, anywhere, So I'm excited to talk to those gentlemen, really good guys, and I can't wait to see what happens in that conversation. And I had mentioned doing my Into the Multiverse for Black House this past week. That just got bumped because I realized the spooky season TBR did need to come out a little earlier. And like I said, I got kind of bogged down that introduction, and that's why I didn't release it until Friday, because it was a little bit of a late week. But hey, these things are going to happen from time to time. And like I said, we're going to be dropping more stuff over in Mike's Media Reviews now that we've got, because what we did was we were moving furniture around and stuff like that, and we had to move this recliner upstairs, my wife and I, that has double recliners in it, and it was a love seat, and it was very heavy. But that's the new sofa that we're recording on for Mike's Media Reviews. So get that and getting all the lighting and stuff fixed. So I think hopefully now I've got the main problems worked out to where we can be more consistent over on Mike's Media Reviews. Hope you guys will join us over there. A couple of TV and movie talk things before I go. Something I'd never watched. I remember seeing pieces of it, and I don't know if I'd ever watched the movie or if this was just kind of like a pop culture thing. I never watched Good Will Hunting, and my wife had, and she was like, I wasn't as wowed by everybody else. Maybe I should watch it again. So we watched it again. I liked it quite a bit. Now, look, I'm still at the point that every time I watch a Robin Williams movie, I'm always just like, oh, it's too soon. Because, it's one of the favorite actors in my generation, obviously. But, yeah, very, very good movie. Very, very emotional. Not everything hits, because down here in the South, we find the Boston accent just really hilarious when it doesn't sound real, And a couple times in that movie, it just sounds a little silly. But there's lots of messages in that movie I really liked. Like, there's one that's really clicked for me is when you know someone who is really underachieving and everyone tells them you got to get your shit together. You're bound for so much more than what you're doing right now. And they don't listen until it's one of their closest friends tells them, you're being a jackass and you're pissing me off because you're not fulfilling, what you can be doing. And I love that message of the movie. It really is. It takes his best friend to tell him, I'll be pissed off if you're still doing construction in 20 years when you got a mind like you have, before he finally realizes, hey, maybe I should grow up and get my shit together. So I love that kind of idea. And of course, Robin Williams is always great. Always, always great. And it's just kind of funny now seeing Ben Affleck and Matt Damon that young now. But yeah, really good movie. Shocking. A movie that everyone loves, that I hadn't seen, that everybody was right. It was really, really, really good. So the first movie that we picked last night to kick off things for my oldest. So my oldest has picked some movies and some movies that we kind of recommended to him, and some ones that passed my wife's okay list. For she says it's okay for him to watch some of them. And he picked Psycho from 1960, the Alfred Hitchcock classic. Now, I hadn't seen this movie since high school. I think the first time I saw it, I was like 8. And yeah, obviously it left a lasting impression on me. I'm here to tell you guys, that movie has aged amazingly well. And here's the thing is, I wanted my kid to see it before he got the twist ending ruined for him. Now, obviously, I think everyone, if you're alive, you know the shower scene. Everyone knows that. That's been parodied and spoofed so many times. Everybody, and my mom, who doesn't watch horror movies, knows the Janet Leigh shower scene of Psycho. I mean, it's pop culture, just Hall of Fame. It really is. There's nobody that doesn't know that scene. But he didn't know the ending, and that was what really he was stunned. But here's the thing: is like I understand it, but dude, the scene where Norman runs in for the last time. Yeah, still gives me goosebumps, man. It's so good. That soundtrack is just, it's just perfect. So yeah, that's an all-timer. It is an all-timer, and it's actually got me interested because that's what we were talking about. We watched it last night. A lot of people were telling me you really should watch Bates Motel from A&E, and I was like, really, a prequel series to Psycho is good because I remember Psycho 2 being like, oh, bad. And I didn't even watch 3, and I think they made a 4. I don't know. Anyway, they waited until Hitchcock died to make those sequels. By the way, I don't think that was an accident. But yeah, amazing, amazing movie. And what a way to kick off the season. I think he says he wants to do I Know What You Did Last Summer next, so that should be fun. And I think my wife and I, so my first pick was Salem's Lot, which isn't out yet. That's October 3rd is when it releases. And her first pick was Dark Water from 2005. It's got Jennifer Connelly, so you got my attention already. But never seen that one, so it should be fun. So that's what we'll be doing here probably in the next few days or so. But guys, that was my week. I would love to know what you guys are up to. What are you watching? What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you playing? Have you started any spooky season plans? I'd love to know about them. So drop in the comments, guys, and let me know. And I will talk to you there.